And what about live? This WSOP main event. I want to know about this. So you get second. You were, this was 2011. You said you basically were winning Player of the Year, and then Ben Lamb sort of miracled the live Vegas final table. But what was this like playing against Elio Fox heads up for the title? Did you guys make any deals? Did you know Elio? And what was this like, this experience at the final table for such huge money?
Yeah, this is a crazy experience because obviously this would come just straight after the World Series as well. So I had a really good World Series. So I wasn't feeling any pressure money-wise and stuff. And like live, I'd had like a lot of success already this year. So I was feeling really confident. And obviously it's a really tough tournament, the World Series Poker Europe. You know, it's a lot more higher percentage of pros. And I remember from like day 2 onwards, me, Jake Cody, and Elio had all gone to dinner to the same spot. And we end up final tabling together. But like from day 2 onwards, maybe there was like 300 left at this point. And maybe there was a couple of other people going and they were still in and then they drop out. But we had to keep going back to the same dinner place. And then like, you know, now we're on the final table and we're still going for dinner with each other. Just kind of like a home game almost. And yeah, and then me and Elio get heads up. Actually, Elio ended up taking Jake out on a really bad beat. And then me and Elio got heads up and we ended up doing a deal anyway. But I obviously really wanted to win, especially after I'd come second in the World Series just before that as well. So I really wanted to win and get my first bracelet. Like, but yeah, he kind of just owned me in a couple of crucial pots, heads up. But I remember the next tournament, like straight from there, it's like it doesn't stop, you know. Like straight after was San Remo, so like we go over, like I think I got taxi over for just like 45 minutes from Cannes to San Remo. But I actually had like I swapped out a decent amount of percentages with people. So I just got the money in cash, like, you know, like I think it was 800,000 euros. And I just had it all in the 500 purple notes in my backpack, just going around with this, like stopping off at McDonald's and stuff. I was like, oh, if only people knew, I'd so like, you know, I could easily get robbed. And then I like go to the tournament, I'm handing out the money. And then actually on day 1 of the EPT, I doubled up early, which was nice. And Elio came over to my table and he just drops off like a brown paper bag with like the deal money that we'd had for first or second. And I'm like, well, don't give it to me now. I got a whole day. So I was like, well, I've already doubled up, blinds are low. So I go back to the hotel, drop it off in the safe. But I'm rushing back, obviously, because I want to get back. I don't want to miss too many hands. Finish the play for the day, go out that night. And then I'm like, okay, I'll check the safe just before I go to bed. But I'm obviously a bit drunk at this point as well. And I can't get into the safe. And then I start panicking. I'm calling downstairs, but no one speaks English, all Italian. I don't know a single word of Italian, obviously. And in the end, they get the message across that the manager is the only person who can open the safe, and they won't be there till the morning. So I'm just there up all night, sleeping, like, well, not sleeping at all, obviously. Sharing my, like, the only person who knew the code was Taylor Parr, who was like a good friend of mine who was sharing the room with me. And I was like, well, if you told someone and they took the money and you're still here, it's quite a good hustle anyway, so respect. But like, but I was like, there's only one code it could be, and it was not working. I was like, well, what the hell's going on here? And anyway, they came, I was just thinking about how stupid it's going to be if I lost this money. I wouldn't, like everyone's never going to let me forget it. And then in the morning they opened it up and they're not allowed to look in the safe. So they kind of opened it up and said like, and I just had the huge sweat and luckily it was all there. But I was, you know, I was like, like 800,000. It was probably like €1 million at that point. This was just after I'd taken my big break from live poker. I was in my downswing. And this was basically my first tournament back. I'd started working with a mind coach that my wife had sort of put me onto. He'd been working with Liv Barry. I remember it was funny. I only did it really to appease her at first because she was like, you're becoming sort of miserable to be around, and you know, and like you're just becoming a negative person. Yeah, I'd never been a negative person really. So I was like, oh God, really? Like, and obviously it's hard to like think I'm like, no, I'm not really. And she's like, no, you are. So I was like, okay. Right. I was like, okay, I'll go and meet this guy. So I met this guy. He's a British guy as well, so it made it easier. But like, it's weird because British people don't like to talk about their feelings and stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's in our heritage. But anyway, I was playing online at the time in Vancouver, and he was out there to visit a friend, and like he agreed to meet me, like no strings attached basically. So I met him in a hotel room, just chatted to him, and instantly I was opening up to him about stuff that I hadn't told anyone before, just like stuff as a kid, that stuff gone on, whatever. And I felt like a really good connection. I was like, okay, I'll go and talk to him a few more times. And the only reason originally like I spoke to him is because I think he'd started working with Liv Barry, and Kay was like, okay, well, Liv's cashed her last free 10K since she started working with her. I was like, oh, wow, cash 3 in a row. I was like, it's not like she's even won any of them, but like, yeah, but anyway, I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just go. And I just did it to almost just make her happy, but I didn't think anything would come with it. And instantly I was like able to sort of, even stuff didn't think I had an issue with, I was like talking to him about, like it was like stuff from like just my childhood, whatever. And I felt better about things. I felt more positive, and I went on a nice upswing in that. I think it was like one of the last F-tops they had. I went on a really nice streak online, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back in the live arena. So I went and played the one in LA, and I had a house in LA at the time that I was living in, so it felt like a home sort of event. And yeah, I mean, I just obviously it didn't help me win races and stuff like that, but I just felt like I was running good. I felt good in my game. And then 7 days later, it was like every day was quite short as well. It's one of those tournaments where there's no dinner break. So we'd sort of play a few hours, come home, reset, go again the next day. And suddenly I'm at the final table, and then, now I'm heads up, and I'm like, okay, this time I can't lose. Like I've come second a few times now, and like I'm starting to get shit from my friends from it. And I was like, this one, I feel like I'm going to get it done. And I got over the line, won it. And it was just like, felt so good because I waited so long for that. I had big scores, but this one felt different because at that point as well, I wasn't backing any horses. So it wasn't like, okay, suddenly this $1 million I win, I'm suddenly going to be sending out 20K here, 20K there. I'm like, okay, that's for me now. And I can sort of build a future with that.
Give me an example on there. What is it, like big blind defense or frequencies? What was something that was stood out?
Yeah, I definitely big blind was the thing that I was leaking a lot from at that point, because maybe I was under defending. Because back when I first started playing, like it was, if you almost didn't want to call the big blind. It was like you saw someone defend like King 4 offsuit against a late position open, and they instantly got the fish tag. That was just like, what are you doing? Like you've already put, you're doubling your losses on this orbit. Like you check folded. Like of course you check folded. You didn't hit much. You didn't hit anything.
Right.
Like just so. Yeah, so like obviously, and I didn't have the experience of playing from the big blind with a lot of these weaker holdings. So then it was an adjustment to like play almost, out of position more without the lead. So there was definitely like a learning curve with that kind of stuff. And then conversely, then other things you were like, he was like, oh, wow, you're doing really well in this respect. Like, and you're like, okay, so it gives you a confidence boost in that thing. Because obviously all the stuff I hadn't suddenly like forgotten how to play poker. It was just some things that were coming up that I'd sort of had bad old habits and I'd stuck with them and that I hadn't really adjusted.
What is the, what do you think the metaphor, like what have you gotten the most, what you would say you could apply to real life from poker with variance, understanding luck and things like this, like just sort of real life situations that come up that you get to learn and master in poker? How do you feel like poker has helped you to understand and move through life?
Well, so like I know I mentioned briefly that I'd started working with a mind coach, and like I win that big tournament, and I've been working with him ever since. So that was like nearly 10 years ago now. And I don't talk to him as often as maybe I did once when I was doing badly or whatever. And I like at various times, like say the World Series, I'll talk to him every week to check in on how it's going. But I would say it's like to always look at the bigger picture, like in life and in poker. I think that translates well. Like in poker, you can have a losing couple of months stretch, but you don't remember like the 3-month stretch before where you had like 150K score and it was like a huge like moment, and you can afford to lose that money back. Like, it sucks. Like, you lose 20K this month, 20K next month. But you have to remember like 3 months ago, you won 150K. So you're actually still up, Right. So, and in life, like, maybe you're going through a tough period. I don't know, like maybe you're having a tough period, like in your relationship, but you have to remember, okay, you've been together like 10 years. Like you have so many great memories. Like no one has like an easy marriage or like an easy time with their mom and dad. Like you're always going to have arguments. You're always going to, and it's about how you sort of grow from that and learn to like have a bit of give or take. Like, okay, understand their point of view, and like you don't have to totally agree, but you can pick your battles, just different stuff. So I think poker can relate to life in the respect that it's, poker's not all, especially playing tournaments, it's never going to be straight up all the way. Like, maybe if you playing in a soft cash game and like you have a big edge on the players, then you're going to be consistently winning all the time. But in tournaments, it's just going to be like all over the place. And you just have to make sure that when you're having a bad day or a bad session, that, that last tournament that you're playing, don't just fuck it off. Like if you win that tournament for 5,000 and you only lose 2,000 a day instead of 7, that's a huge win. Even though it's still a loss technically, it's a huge win, and that like gives you the confidence going into the next session. And likewise in life, if you have an argument, like maybe try and iron it out before you go to bed. Don't like let it stew and like let it become a bigger thing than it needs to be. No, it was actually a time I was going through a really tough period in poker. Actually, I just dropped all of my horses. At one point I was backing 30 players all by myself, and it'd been like ups and downs, and then like basically everyone went down at the same point, and I kind of like should have got out way earlier than I had. And I you know, it was like, oh, it will turn around, someone will win something, and then, you know, no one won anything. And then I realized, oh shit, I like lost basically like, you know, 90+% of my bankroll. So I'm starting sort of back from the bottom, and I thought it would be fun playing lower stakes and, you know, building it back where every sort of win mattered in like lower stake tournaments, and I could, you know, like own people a lot more because they weren't as good. And, you know, it was only a couple of month period, but like I was just kind of running deep in these tournaments, coming 12th, 13th, and it's really frustrating, especially when you're playing like a $10 rebuy online. There's 5,000 people in it, and you come like 12th or 13th for nothing. And you know that the win would suddenly, okay, you can jump up again. So I took a year off. I didn't really play much live. I played lower stakes. And the first few months, I was just kind of, I thought I'd enjoy it, but I really didn't, because I was like, had a lot of FOMO from like missing live tournaments. I saw other people who I thought I was better than, like winning big tournaments, and I was like struggling, and I was just on, you know, I definitely wasn't playing my best as well. It started affecting me. So basically this opportunity came to me where it was like guaranteed money. I could do this thing, and like I could take a little break from my tournaments as well, and like reset my mindset and go from there. So I basically took a small break from poker just for like a couple of months, only playing maybe like Sundays and stuff, and worked on this, and then had a better perspective coming back, and actually went on a nice upswing after that. So it helped me sort of see the bigger picture, and because it was quite hard, because like, you know, I know my dad like had always been like, oh, you should invest and buy houses, but I didn't know where I wanted to live, and I didn't want to invest in stuff outside of poker because I didn't know much about it, and I didn't want to bring out in outside help which maybe wasn't very smart, but I thought I knew poker really well. So I was backing all these people, and it was going well for a while, and then like I just basically took on too much and put myself in a bad spot, and it kind of all came tumbling down, and I felt a bit stupid about it all. So yeah, I just had to reset. Yeah, like I had, it was shortly after I got rid of all my horses as well. Like, so I was struggling a lot online. The game was changing obviously, and I'd have to, you know, the game was always changing, but this time I was struggling to like pinpoint where I was losing out. And like, actually like reached out to, not a lot of people know this, but I actually reached out to Patrick Leonard, because he's someone I respected, and I knew he was running his huge stable at the time, and I knew he knew all about like poker tracker stats and stuff like that. And I was like kind of a fish in poker track. I used it, I used it when I first started for cash games, and then I'd gone through a phase where I just didn't use a hard, and then I was like back and forth on a hard. So I didn't know exactly what numbers you wanted where, and how it, you know, like where I was leaking massively from just looking at my database. And I remember him like putting up a post just for like $500 or something. I'll send me your like database, and I'll look through it and see what, you know, I can fix some of your stuff. And I was like, well, what's the harm in you doing it? You know, obviously like you're giving up some EV to someone you're playing against, like, you know, sometimes, but you know, tournament fields are so big. It's not really a big deal. So
yeah, and then when you're with him, if you're ever with him, you know he knows, and then you maybe actually do.
Yeah, of course, you're going to get in some weird spots after that, but you know,
yeah,
your game's still constantly changing.
For sure.
And so yeah, I did that, and I was like, okay, I'll try anything at this point, because you know, it wasn't even more about the money. It was just like, just hate losing. So like, yeah. I was like, why am I getting beat up at that point? Like, I felt like like there's definitely times when you feel like, okay, I'm just running bad, but at that point as well, I felt like I wasn't playing good as well. So that's like, that hasn't happened too often for a long period of time in my career, but like I felt at that moment I wasn't running good, I wasn't playing well. I got like, every time I went to register, I was like not feeling confident. So I was like, I need to fix something. I need to do something drastic. So I was like, okay, fuck it. So I sent him the hands over, and he like came back with like a bunch of detailed notes, like he does, you know. It's not someone who does something half-assed, Patrick. So he sent me the thing, and I looked at it all, and I was like, wow. And so I, you know, made some adjustments, and then quickly after that, I went on a nice upswing, and you know, obviously that helped, and definitely helped my confidence as well, which, you know, helped me play better as well. So